Good morning. Welcome back to my Ohio urban garden. I keep wanting to call it a homestead, and then other times I'm like, no, I'm nowhere near there yet. Have you ever had that feeling like you have a goal, you want to be somewhere, but maybe you're not there yet? Yeah, that's kind of where I am. That's actually not what I wanted to talk to you today about. Today I wanted to say it's okay if you struggle to complete a project because it's too big for you. And so I guess that is kind of the same thing. I'm going to walk you through where I am. You've seen a little bit of my garden so far. It's so much fun to sort of see how it goes through the seasons. But as you can hear, I've been fighting a cold for a while. And that and just, not being in the shape that I should be makes it hard to keep up with this big project that I've outlined for myself. And that means that sometimes projects, little tasks get left undone. But the amazing thing about this beautiful world God made is that it thrives, it survives, its life. It does better when we tend it, but it'll survive just fine without us too. Like, we're an important part of helping provide order and function and beauty to this world. But if we're not present, God is the designer, and He's going to help make sure things have order and function and beauty without us. He lets us partner with Him, but things go on too. So I'm going to take you through my little process, and I'm going to show you some of the mess that's here, some of the things that I simply didn't have the strength to do. But I'm also going to show you the glorious, beautiful growth that's been taking place, and encourage you to you keep plugging away. You do what little bit you can as you can do it. You work towards a goal, and you forgive yourself in those moments when you simply can't do everything you need to do. And then as you have strength, you fill in those gaps. So, hang on. Let me see if I can. One of the most amazing things about my garden this year are the blue jays and the cardinals. Look at that. He's a doozy. He's big, and I just saw someone else fly in, but I don't see where she is. Oh, right over there. Look at that. Speaking of nature doing its thing, I didn't do anything to intentionally bring these birds in, but they are all over the place this year. And when you look around at the work I'm doing, I have food for them. I have been disrupting the soil and making it easier for them to find the grubs and some of the earthworms. I've been building these trellises for my plants, and they've become perches for them. And I've got straw and I've got grass, and it's making things that they can grab for their nests. So I may not be intentionally bringing in the birds, but they're still coming. And it is one of the amazing joys of this garden. Looks like he's trying to pull up a root for part of his nest. Unfortunately, that's not going to work because it's a big root ball of grass that I haven't broken up yet. But when I break it up later, he'll be able to grab some of those things. What a beautiful sight. So I guess that goes with what I'm trying to say is, we do what we can, but we are not perfect. We don't have all the strength that we need to make things happen. But nature is resilient and beautiful and strong, and the designer is here, taking care of things, giving these creatures a chance to grow and thrive, and there he goes. So there's a nice little treat. So let me take you on this quick little journey that I have here. I have some amazing growth, some things that I've learned along the way, because I've done gardening for about, I would say, I don't even know, it's been a long time. I think I planted my first garden when I was 18 years old, but it was flowers. And I think I planted my first tomatoes when I was like 24, 25, something like that. And well, here I am, turning 48 this year. Oh my goodness. So I've been growing things for a long time, but there's an intentionality about it this year where I'm trying to really learn some things. And so there are gaps in my knowledge. There are things I didn't know how to do before, and I'm learning as I go. So let's take a walk and see what's out there. And I'll turn my face off and turn on this beautiful garden. All right, so let's go start here at the beginning and give you an idea of where I am sort of trying to work with nature and spare my strength at the same time. So this here, I've mentioned to you, this is goldenrod. Look at this gorgeous thicket. This is just incredible. This is what you'll see in a lot of the prairie lands around here. Goldenrod is everywhere. And I had gotten some plants from somebody who was just throwing things away. So I went and I dug up a whole bunch of plants from her yard with my sister. And I had like 5 of these plants. And that was 2 years ago. And look at this, it reseeds. And so now, instead of having to plant it, I just clip it out when I don't need it anymore. And these are true prairie plants, which means their roots are super deep. I can't pull them out with my hand because the roots go way down. And prairie grasses and prairie plants, their roots can go like multiple feet down. I don't think this is one, I think it's maybe a foot, but they go way, way, way down. So I leave this in for the local pollinators. And then I wanted to have flowers and herbs and things, but I honestly ran out of strength trying to chop up the grass and pull it out, just because I've had so many illnesses this year. But I did what I could. I dug some things up and I scattered in a whole bunch of seeds. I had a whole bunch of like expired seeds from years and years ago. And I thought, well, I don't know if they're going to come up or not, but I'll throw them in and see what happens. And I have calendula. That's what this stuff is. This is calendula. And it reseeds itself year after year. Wonderful healing herb. And so it popped up in multiple little places here. This I planted. That's oregano. And oregano will become a big mounding ground cover that'll take up this whole corner eventually. This is rosemary. Rosemary doesn't always survive our winter, so I might have to replant it. But if it survives, it gets big. It's like a big, beautiful bush. We have savory. I dropped that in. I've never planted it before, but I've read a lot of recipes, especially English ones that call for it. I figured I'd give it a try. And here I have thyme. I don't often enjoy thyme. Sometimes I find it a little bit too, sharp. But the lemon thyme kind of mellows it a little bit. And so I'm going to grow that. And like the oregano, this will grow big. I have no idea what the savory is going to do. So I might have these too close. We'll see. These are from the packet of seeds that I just sort of threw out. And this is parsley. Is this parsley or tomato? I haven't figured it out yet. Let me smell it. My hands smell like mint because of all the processing I was doing. So I suspect that's parsley because tomato would have a really strong smell. All right, so there's other things popping up. I may have zinnias. I may have borage. I'm not entirely sure because, like I said, I just threw things in. There's my lavender that I popped in. And over there I have some savory. And I just come through and I try to clip the grass down, and I'll just keep planting in it until eventually the grass is gone, because that's really all I can do. All right, so in through here, this garden bed, oh, look at this gorgeous, these are huge. Look at the size of that. This is huge. Those are my pumpkins. Oh, this is a weed. I'll pull that out. But that's borage. I had planted 3 borage in a pot, hoping one of them would sprout. Well, they all 3 sprouted, so I popped one right in there. And that, of course, will bring in pollinators and everything. It is a little close to the pumpkins, but the pumpkins are going to wind out on this. So once it's got a long enough vine, I'm going to be training it to climb the vine. And this tomato is one I bought at the store. It is exactly the same variety as the tomato over there, which I direct sowed into the bed, and they're the same height. It's incredible. So one thing I try to do is I plant like pollinators. So this is a zinnia, and that should bring pollinators in for my veggies. Well, what I wanted to show you about this particular bed is that I tried to grow celeriac. I don't know if I succeeded. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. I had sown this whole middle section with celeriac, and I think this may be some, but I'm not sure. And I think those are some. They look kind of like celery leaves, so maybe, but who knows if they'll even succeed. And rather than stress about the fact that I might not have that particular vegetable, I just filled in some of the gaps, but I left room in case some survived, and I think I'm glad I did. There might be more over there. If there are viable seeds, they'll work, and if they're not, they won't. Similarly, here I have some Armenian cucumber, and I have struggled with cucumber here. I think I have some suspicions as to why. So that one's all like bug-eaten and nasty and not doing well, and this one's doing okay. Well, cucumbers like heat, and this has been a very cool May, and it looks like it's shaping up to be a cool June. And maybe I'm just planting my cucumbers out too early. The squash can handle it, but the cucumbers are a little more Mediterranean style, whereas the squash are more American style, and I think that may be the difference. So again, we're supposed to work with nature, not against it. That's why direct seeding works if you have the right stuff, but it's also why sometimes things don't succeed, and you just gotta kind of roll with the punches as it changes and that sort of thing. So, and here I had done a direct seed and it failed. So I planted a Roma tomato from the store. This is so much smaller than my sunrise saucers. And that's actually a good thing because these are determinate tomatoes. So that means it's the bush variety, and they will all be ready like sort of at once. So if they're at different stages of growth, then I will have staggered things out, and it'll be a little more manageable when it comes time to make sauce in August and September. Well, here's my carrots. They are doing so well. I have been trying to go in and thin them out, and even so, I end up with too many. Oh, look, there's a weed. But as you can see, what I did is, can you see that? Yeah. This is about 1 inch apart, so that should give them enough space to really grow. And it is pretty loose soil in there. So hopefully I'll get some decent size ones. Like I said, I've been trying to thin them out. So here's another one where I've got a mistake, and I just sort of roll with it, and I'm seeing what happens, and I'm using it as a learning experience. And plants are going to do what they're going to do anyway because God made them to grow. So here's what we have. I had these peas here, and I think I showed you in a prior one that they were so yellow, and you could still see some of that. They were so struggling, and I didn't know if I was dealing with something like nematodes at the root or if I had a fertility problem in the soil. And given how much compost I had, that didn't make sense unless I had done a bad job mixing it with the peat moss and I had pockets. And so what I did is I dug up some of the peas just to see what the roots look like. Absolutely no nematode issue. It was absolutely a mix. In fact, as I dug it up, I found this pocket of peat moss that had not been mixed in with everything else. And so I just did a bad job, again, because of my strength when I was making this mix. It wasn't evenly distributed, and so there was no fertility for those peas. So what I did is I got some of that organic chicken manure, the granules you can get at the store, and I scattered it around at the base of the roots, and I watered it in, and then it's rained a lot, and a lot of the peas have recovered, which just goes to show that they're super resilient. Now, it's kind of too late for some of those, but they're still struggling. Those are definitely not going to make it. They're too short. They've never survived. But I'm going to have a few peas, and since I'm the only one in the family who eats them, a few peas is all I need. Here I threw in a tomato, but because I knew about all the fertility issues, I made sure to amend the soil really well here with fertilizer before I put this in. Same thing with this pepper. So which one is this? This one's a jalapeno. Jalapenos seem to grow despite themselves here. They really don't have any problem with how cool it gets. So they do really well. Wish I liked them more. This one is an orange blaze. I just put this sweet pepper in yesterday. I don't know how well it'll do. But right now it's slightly shaded, but when the peas come out, this is going to be one of the more blazing hot parts of the garden. So I thought that was the best chance. So again, trying to learn from what I'm doing. Here's more of the carrots that again, I've been slowly but surely trying to work to thin out so that there's room down there for them to make roots. But this patch I haven't gotten to yet. That one you can see I have. We have eaten off of these spinach once. It's getting warm, so I'm going to clip these off because you can see they're beginning to make points here. Once the leaves start to make points, they're trying to flower, and that's when it starts to get bitter. We're going to clip all that off. We're going to eat off of it, but I'll probably try to plant some more somewhere in the back. Here's another example of an unfinished project. I ran out of strength and I had to forgive myself. So this, the turnips yesterday, I pulled all the turnips out. There were a few spare radishes that were woody and no good. And I pulled them out as I went. I clipped off the bottoms and I brought those in so that we could get them in the fridge so they wouldn't go bad. But I didn't have the ability to lift and move things around. So later today, I'll be going in and I'll getting these weeds and I'll use them as mulch in other parts of the garden. And I put in pinto beans here. So we'll see how that goes. And more carrots that I've been thinning. I'm hoping to have multiple harvests, so that I can have carrots throughout the year. I'll have to plant more carrots in a bed somewhere soon. So this one's going to do real nice. You can already tell it's thick, it's gorgeous. So let's talk about potatoes. This one's fun. You want to talk about a mistake? So I planted all these potatoes. They're doing real great. I keep adding straw and grass clippings to the bottom to try to cover them up so the bottoms, roots don't turn green. This here, look how short that one is. When I was out here making all the paths, I weed whacked that one down. And I was counting up my stalks and I went, wait a minute, I have 13 potatoes. Where's my 13th potato? I was like, oh wait, there it is. But it's coming back up again. Nature will do its thing. So you just sort of gotta go, okay, oops, and let it keep going and it'll be fine. Now this may look like a mess, and I'm going to tell you the pluses and the minuses of this. This is lasagna gardening the slow way. So I weed whacked down to the very base. I put in cardboard, as you can see. Then I layered in grass clippings. Then I started adding like brown paper bags. Then I put in grass clippings, and then there's also some leaves and stuff in there just from people gardening. And then there's weeds, or not weeds, these may be like turnip clippings and other types of things where there's the tops of plants. So there's a mix of greens and browns in here. On the one hand, it's going to make lovely soil over the course of the next year. On the other hand, this can be something that would invite, say, slugs. Not the ants, it's not quite settled enough for ants, but it will bring like slugs and beetles and stuff. So if you're going to work with nature, you got to accept that you're going to have nature, if that makes any sense. It just happens. So I've accepted this as a messy part of gardening, but if you don't like this, or if slugs are a real pest in your garden, then you really have to have a compost heap. Here we have our beans growing up against our trellis, and I think I had told you about this, but you haven't seen it yet. So my husband augured these holes for these posts. They're 12-foot posts, and then we put in 2 cattle panels, and I say 2, it's actually 4. So 1 cattle panel here and 1 there. So that's 100 inches of trellis that we just built in a couple weeks ago now. And And now the beans will have something to climb up against. And we have a few gaps. I've planted more bean seeds in there, so hopefully I'll get some. And when I had planted this before I had the trellis in, I didn't do a straight line, and so I ended up with beans on the outside, but that's okay. They'll grow up and around, and then in the future I'll know what my boundary is. And here are the oldest beans that I've planted, and I got to get the strings in. Again, I ran out of strength, but they're going to have trouble here soon because they're getting so tall. So I just need to get a string and put it maybe about there, just easy height, and run it down to it, and then it'll climb the string, and then it can go up the trellis the rest of the way. And in the future, I will only be planting right up against this that, of course, didn't exist when I planted these originally. So that will let me use this space for other things. Here we have asparagus. Look at all that. It's lovely. So not all my asparagus has come up quite so well, but I do have like 6 or 7 in there that are growing. I am going to have to get some cardboard out and kill this grass and finish weeding. So there's this in-between stage, right, that just feels messy. It looks messy, but the plants will survive. They will come through. You just got to work with it and let it go. Here we have dill that I just planted yesterday, which is why it's kind of loose. The squirrels like to come and dig things up right after I plant them. I don't know what it is. It's like they think that I planted something just for them. I'm not sure. So I come out and I find like flowers completely dug up. And I thought at first maybe it was maybe the skunks, but it's not, because skunks can't climb up this, and the holes are in there too. So look at this. So skunks will come and they'll make a little indent about the size and shape of their nose, and they're going after grubs. And so I thought maybe this was them, but it's not, because these are the same holes that I'm finding up high in here. And that's why I used to try to always keep things netted, but I was running into strength issues, to be honest, this year. I couldn't keep covering it up with the net, building more trellises. It's hard to explain, but I've been really struggling with illness, and I just didn't have the strength. So I said, forget it. What survives, survives, and I just planted. So these are all onions. They're doing really well. An experiment. I had used that. I'd put a whole bunch of stuff like weed clippings, not weed, but weed clippings, and rhubarb clippings and any sorts of things into a pot, and then filled it with water and then covered it up, and stinks to high heaven. But I diluted it. I had like a cup of it and maybe a couple gallons of water, and I poured it over this, and they went to town. They're so thick, they're so tall. This side I didn't do that with, and it's struggling. So I actually have a liquid fertilizer that I'm going to use. And the reason is I'm never using that stink water again because it stinks too much. I'm too close to my neighbors. It is not fair to them. So I'm going to bury that stink stuff in my compost pile, so I still get the nutrients that I made, but it should cover up the smell. And then I'm just going to use like organic liquid fertilizers. At least I know what I could do if I were broke, right? But I can't put my neighbors through that. That is unkind. So I'm going to do other solutions while it works. Okay. Let me show you what I did over here and what I have to do. Have you ever done rhubarb? So rhubarb is wonderful, but ages ago, I didn't know how big they were going to get. And this is actually 2 plants, but it's the size of one because one is shading out the other. So they usually would get big like this, and they'd have really nice thick stalks, right? And this one looks great. But the second one over here, although it's producing a lot of stalks, they're tiny. And it's because it's getting shaded out by the daylily and the rhubarb. And so in the fall, I'm going to have to dig that up and move it elsewhere. And you can split rhubarb, just like you can do splitting most of your perennials. But they do need sun. They don't want to be blasted by afternoon heat, but they do need sun. So I'll probably like move that hostas or something to my front shade garden and make this a bigger rhubarb patch so there's more stuff I can get to. Somebody's walking their dog and the neighbor's dogs are going nuts. This is an attempt. I've struggled to get things to grow here, and it's because it's shady until about noon, and things just don't like to be cold for that long. That's a pumpkin, and as you can see, it's not doing as well as the ones up front because it doesn't get as much sun. It still gets 6 hours or so, but it doesn't get 12, and that does make a difference. Here's something to, I'm getting my kids involved. My daughter wants to sell cut flowers. So I dug out this area for her and she put in a whole bunch of zinnias and she asked me to plant this for her. It's still in a pot, but I'll put it here and that way she can have this for the back of her bouquets, this grass. And I had a whole bunch of daylilies here and a whole bunch of weeds, and you can see I've got all the weeds here. Remember I said I ran out of strength. It's because I was here and I was digging like crazy and it just wore me out. All these 3 beds had been crammed full of daylilies as well as these weeds. So dug out the lilies and she's put in some plants she selected, and then she's got a whole bunch of classic cut flowers in here. So tall marjoram and carnation, and she's got hollyhocks. I don't even remember what all, but she selected a whole bunch of gorgeous classic cutting flowers. Back there, that patch I dug out for her, she's going to grow some sunflowers. I think she has some mixed flowers there, and this we have some black-eyed Susan. So hopefully she'll end up with a bunch of flowers for cutting and selling by late August. We're a little late. That's normally the sort of thing that you would have to do earlier, but it's been a cool spring, a wet spring, and so it's okay that we really didn't get started until now. It'll be all right. This will get a lot of sun, so it should catch up pretty quick. So that's one of those things where you just you work in stages, right? The reality of gardening is that it doesn't look as pretty as it does on YouTube. Sometimes you end up with piles. So this afternoon I'll take this pile and I'll use it as mulch in my back vegetable garden. But sometimes you just have to go with the flow and nature will make a way. Here's a crazy thing for you. I planted the base straight, but this is not straight. So I'm gonna have my husband come out here and help me straighten this, or we're gonna have a tree growing this way and it's gonna make us all crazy, especially since that's straight into the walkway. But he's helped me straighten things before. I'm not good at up and down. I really am not. It's a miracle this one made it in all right. I was getting worried, but we got a little green. So that's an apricot. And again, this one's a little bit crooked. It's also very young, so he's gonna have to help me kind of straighten it out, and this one as well, just because I am limited at my ability to make straight lines. Look at those grapevines. Whoop. Did you see that? We have cottonwood tree in our neighbor's backyard, that big giant gorgeous thing there, and it makes the whole neighborhood filled with white fluff. Here, look at that. Oh, we have anthills. Lovely. Hopefully they're just sugar ants, but sometimes we end up with carpenter ants, so we're going to come out here and kill those. Alrighty. Let's come back here. This, you could see the squirrels digging up all these holes in my mulch, looking for whatever I did not plant. And it's doing a number on things. And again, my Boston pickle and cucumber didn't work. I had one on each corner and it's just not working, and I think it's too cold for them. So I'll have to try again in the blazing summer. People say cucumbers don't like to get too hot, but I think there's like this sweet spot for them in the 80s. They're gonna keel over and be thirsty and everything if it's 90 degrees out. On the other hand, these 50-degree nights and 70-degree days is just not warm enough for my cucumbers. They just don't make it. So I'm gonna have to keep working at them. But anyway, out here we've got more squash. And again, it's another little one. It'll catch up. It's another big pumpkin. And lots of tomatoes and some peppers and cilantro and cabbage. And over there is a watermelon. And over here is another watermelon if it survives the squirrels. I think I had mentioned to you before that you may have seen the trees that were here. There were these really tall trees, and I'd said we were going to cut them down. So my husband did make it out here, and he was able to chop them down. So he was able to cut these down and do some chopping down of brush and things like that. But of course, we haven't weed whacked yet, and we haven't finished clearing things out, and we've got to run some things through the wood chipper. So everything is a project. Everything is an in-process thing. Here we have strawberries, and because I had gaps in the strawberries, I went ahead and planted some watermelon here. No trellis, but I've got all this open space, so I'll just let the watermelon come up over and run around the beds, and it should be fine. So I was able to plant what I thought I couldn't fit in my garden. There's another watermelon. Again, it's got to survive the squirrels, which look like they're trying to dig it up again. More strawberries and more weeds. And then these are dinosaur kale. I've tried several varieties of kale and I've always hated it. But people say this one is sweeter. So I will give this one a try. Maybe I can make kale chips. Maybe I can fold it into soups. I don't know. But I'm not a big greens person, but I know that we need them in our diet. So I'm trying to figure out how to make it happen. So I'm going to give this variety a shot. And it is cooler back here than it is up front. So maybe they won't get as bitter. We'll see what happens. But again, forgive yourself. I've got to get through here and clean up that wood pile so that we can wood chip. And so that we can weed whack. And I just have not had the strength to do it. I was going to do it this last weekend and I was in bed, and I was going to do it yesterday, but my daughter wanted me to help her with that garden. And as soon as I did that, I had nothing left. So gardening and homesteading and whatever it is you do, whatever project you do, it's a process. It can get involved. It can get messy. But things keep growing anyway. They get bigger and more beautiful and filled with life. And as you remember, the birds come and you can even hear them. The birds come and we have this beautiful, productive garden, and I can't even do everything I'm supposed to do to make it happen. So continue with me on my journey this year as I keep making improvements little by little as I can, and I hope that you do the same in your garden. Till next time.